So, in the last class I said that we are going to start a new topic on solid state reactions, but before I do that I think it is important that I clarify you few things. Hopefully you remember that in these about few classes ago I discussed about the intermetallic or intermediate compounds, and I drawn your attentions to different types of compounds which formed and their formation methodology and many other things. But I just like to point it out to you here that syntactic reaction also you have intermediate phase like this one here in the phase diagram I am showing you. Alpha phase which forms P2 syntactic reaction is an intermediate phase, and this phase also satisfy those rules and regulations I told you about the intermediate phases previously. So, just to give you an example in a real phase diagram, like here it is potassium zinc, you can see here that there is a phase formed known as KZN13, and this phase is an intermediate phase which is forming a certain concentration of zinc and the potassium. So, this is also intermediate type of phase. In fact, this is hemorrhotic type of phase which forms by the syntactic reactions. Similarly, for the potassium lead phase diagram, there are many intermediate type of phase forms due to syntactic reactions. The one which is important here is the congruent type like Kb, Kpb, which directly forms from the liquid without any reaction or without any syntactic reaction. Then other phases which forms like this one K2Pb3, Kpb2, Kpb4, they are all different types of intermediate phases and they also comes under that category. So, just to enlighten you on this matter, we do not really appreciate these phases because they are not really used in the applications, but for the sake of completeness of the understanding we must know that syntactic reaction also leads to formation of intermediate phases. Okay, so now before I go back into solid state reaction, another thing I want to finish or I want to talk to you about that is about the dendrites, and I talked to you about dendrites many times, but I never discussed with it, but I thought it is important for you to know about dendrites and their morphologies. You know, dendrites are ubiquitous in solidified structures. If you look at any solidified product, dendrites are part of it, you cannot avoid them. So, it is better to understand that. It took almost 40 to 50 years in the last century to understand the formation of dendrites and their their mechanism of formations, their problems, and also how to use them in the car structures. So, I am not going to discuss all these things, but I am going to tell you how they appear, what is their morphological evolution formations, and also how do they are normally formed. So, let us take a very simple cast aluminum copper alloy which is shown here, aluminum copper alloy. Let us take that, and you know this aluminum copper alloy is like a duralumin type which is used in the aerospace industry. So, you can see here there are lots of structures in the microstructure, and this is I want to tell you that this is a very long structure. It is about 7 millimeter versus 5 millimeter is the length and breadth of this picture, and within that you can see there are tree like structure. This is one, you can see the branches are like this. There is another one which is here, there is a trunk and the branches are going like this. There are many others, there is another one here. Each of these are known as dendrites in 2 dimensions. You see they are branch like or tree like structure. Actually dendrite word come from dendron in the Greek literature, and it means tree. So, anything which is like a tree like structure in a solidified product or microstructure is known as dendrite. And dendrites, as I have said, it has basically it looks like a pine tree or tree, and it has side branches coming out from the main branch. To give you a better idea, suppose this is cast tin copper tin structure, you will see this microstructure when you are working with solidified product. Here you see dendrites are not very clearly visible, but you can see the skeleton of dendrites. Like here I can show you, this is the dendrite, you can see this is the skeleton of a dendrite I am drawing like this, skeleton of a dendrite going. So, therefore, and there are many others, there is another one here, skeleton of a dendrite. and the secondary phase which is formed around the skeleton of a dendrite can be seen as a black in copper tin or bronze kind of structure, right. So, there are many such, I am not drawing it. So, in fact dendrites actually are fallout of cells. So, let me just tell you, suppose you take a solid liquid interface which is kind of a flat one, solid and liquid interface, and suppose the solid is going to the liquid, and under certain conditions which is dictated by this interface and also the applied condition for the solidification during casting, this interface can become perturbed and form this kind of structures, okay. And these are known as perturbations. These perturbations can be a compositional fluctuation or temperature fluctuation across the interface, which is very usual in a solidified product. When something getting solidified, it is very common that there will be fluctuation of temperature and solute concentrations across this interface, and these actually are perturbations of that. These are like a sine wave. Now, if you allow them these sine waves to grow under certain conditions, then they can become big and form what is known as cells, and this is what I have shown here as a picture, late teen cells. They are hexagonal cells which can be formed. So, now if you allow them to go further, they can actually form side branches and become dendrite like this I have drawn, okay. So, these are all cells and these are all dendrites. How this transition happens and what are the mechanisms for it is very complex, they are very big story, not complex, understood properly, still very big story which I cannot discuss in this lecture, but what I can tell you that this is the way most of the dendrites form in the solidified products. There are many such theories which are there, but most importantly a theory which I told you just now is the accepted theory, and that is how this forms. Now, there are many, this is what I have shown you here. This has been proved by experiments like using organics like calcium tetrabromide, which is transparent to light. You can take this calcium tetrabromide and in situ you can solidify using an optical microscope, what you will find this kind of cells formation like this. The important factor which you understand is that the interface which was there as a flat one here has broken down and become like a cell. This is exactly shown here, you see here, this is what is a solid liquid interface, this is solid, this is liquid. Now, you can see here this perturbation has formed, this is sinusoidal perturbations like this, okay, like this or like this or like this, and then this perturbation, oh sorry, I have drawn other way. So, this is should be written this way, let me just draw it properly, yeah, this is like this actually, this is sine wave. So, it follows a perturbation, and then you can see here this has grown, this has grown, this has grown, this has grown, okay, this has grown like this. So, then finally it has become a big cell. So, this is how actually the mechanism of dendritic formations are described and discussed, okay. Similarly, I am taking an example from the literature from the work of Professor Rohit Trivedi in USA. For there we use succinylnitrile, which is also a transparent organic compound. As you can see, this is a solid liquid interface which is flat, then the same perturbation forms like a sinusoidal wave, and finally cells forms. From the cells you can form dendrites. So, therefore, these dendrites are actually a very simple ubiquitous morphology which is present in all solidified products. Similarly, from the video frames which has been done by Professor Trivedi and his co-workers, you can see that how in a simple experiment we can explain the formation of dendrites very easily as the interface has broken down into dendrites. Okay, and this has been the case for long time, and long back Kepler even has seen these dendrites in ice or water systems, and this is a typical ice dendrites, tree like structure, branched, and these dendrites actually are hexagonal ice. So, therefore, they have a typical hexagonal pattern you can see here, and you can actually do experiments in such a way that in metal also you can get 3-dimensional shape of a dendrite tip. You can see this is what is the wave, fluctuation wave, whatever you can say, the sinusoidal wave which has grown as a dendrite like this way. the several couple of them are present here, and this is the contour map of temperatures for these dendrite temperature flux, very low inside and high inside. This is a liquid, this is solid, so therefore it happens. And this is xenon crystal dendrites. You can see that how the dendrites has grown is exactly same like a metallic dendrites, and one can actually simulate now with this using theories to show that this is how the dendrites. You can see inside the dendritic pattern is engraved very clearly. Okay, I am just following the things, so you can do that. So this is a 2-dimensional picture, that is why you can see the 4-fold dendrites, but 3-dimensional. Okay, even you can see dendrites in frost in the cold countries. The frost forms on the wind panes or the windshields of the car can have this dendritic morphology, because this frost is nothing but consisting of the ice crystals, and ice crystals will be having dendritic like structure. Well, this is exactly the same picture I have shown you for extraction nitrile, and I am showing you again and again, so that you get impressed upon that this is a very common form of the pattern which is observed in the solidified products. Superalloys, this is the work taken from Vitek and Babu, which has been published in Journal of Materials long back. In a welded structure of superalloys, nickel aluminium and nickel 3 aluminium, you can see the dendrites 3-dimensionally very clearly. They are classic structures which has been seen, superalloy dendrites, and this is reported in literature long back. Simulations are also done. 3-dimensionally they are looking like this. I am just showing you 3-dimensional dendrite of a simulated one. 3-dimensionally they look like this kind of structures, and where you can actually see the 6-pole dendrite going along with 6-1-0 directions of the cubic crystals, and which is done using phase field modeling by Alan Karma and his group. And one can actually even do better. You can do this the composition profile on the dendrites. You can see here the dendrites are grown in such a way that even the compositions can be mapped, and this is the typical temperature profile of the 3D dendrites, again simulation done by group Professor Alan Karma. Okay, and long back Gilsman, I should not forget his name, that is why I wanted to show you, also has done classic experiments to using the optical camera and to show how a dendrite grows. This is actually a collage of different pictures taken at different time scale, and here you can see that clearly that this collage is so that this is what is the first time scale, second time scale, third time scale, fourth, fifth, sixth. You can see here that initially there are no side branches, and then the side branches has grown and become a full bone dendrites. Okay, so I'll just skip these things, and yeah, just to show you this part, that this is the 3 parallel dendrites going in a directionally solidified microstructure, and many terms I am using, but you may not understand, but you must know that this is the typical things which formed in the solidified product. I have shown you for eutectic and hypereutectic alloys, but I never shown you in detailed manner. So I am just telling you that these are actually present in every solidified product, you can't avoid them. So they forms the way I told you, and they are the presence in the different structures. Okay, so let me just stop it here for the dendritic growth discussions. And now just I gave you a vivid idea about the different cast structures. I now go back to the solid state reactions which I was supposed to teach you today, and so you know there are 3 solid state reactions which we need to discuss today. Just I first go back to the board and discuss with you. So I have discussed written the 3 reactions in solid state. The first one is known as eutectoid reaction, which is what we spend a lot of time on that, because eutectoid reactions are present in the iron carbon system, and it controls the iron carbon system microstructure and properties. And this reaction actually goes like this: a solid phase alpha transformed to solid phases beta plus gamma. Okay, that is how it happens. It is exactly like eutectic reactions, which I will write, but in eutectic reaction you have what? You have one liquid phase transforming into 2 solid phases. Okay, but here this L is replaced by, or rather let me write it in a very common way, then you will understand, liquid going to beta plus gamma. So here L is replaced by alpha, or alpha is a solid phase, not a liquid. Okay, that is what is the difference between these two. So if you understand this reaction nicely, you can understand this reaction also. Difference is that here liquid is transformed into two solid phases, but in this case a solid phase is transformed into two other different type of solid phases. Okay, next one is important reaction is a monotectoid reaction. I have discussed you two monotectoic reactions. Let me write down again, even if you have not forgotten. Monotectic reaction is what? L1 going to L2 plus solid alpha. So liquid L1 transformed to another liquid L2 plus alpha, correct. Similarly, in this monotectoid solid state version of this, alpha 1 transformed to beta plus alpha 2. What is the difference between this alpha and alpha 2? They have similar crystal structure, or same crystal structure rather, compositions are only different. Here also L1 L2, there are all two, both are liquids, there is no difference, the compositions of these two liquids are different. Similarly, alpha and alpha 2 compositions are only differing, crystal structure remains same. That is the second reaction which we are going to discuss. Third reaction which is important for us to discuss is the peritectoid reactions. Peritectoid reaction is given by two solid phases reacting and forming another solid phase. We know the peritectoid reaction in liquid, peritectoid reaction in liquid, this is L plus alpha giving rise to solid phase beta. So we have replaced this L, or rather I write, otherwise you will get confused. I replace L with, so L plus beta going to alpha gamma, I replace L with alpha. So because solid state reaction will have all solid phases involved, so therefore, so now if you look at eutectoid and peritectoid reactions, they are opposite to each other very clearly, but their formations and their the way reaction mechanism occurs is not same, or not opposite rather I would say. Although these two reactions looks like similar, but things are not opposite. Bulk of our discussion will happen on eutectoid reactions, let me tell you, because we are going to discuss about I would say 10 lectures on ion carbon systems, and in the next 10 lectures I am going to concentrate on eutectoid reactions, how the perlite forms and what are different ways we can control the perlite microstructure in steels. But lastly I will spend about one lecture on monotectoid reaction and one lecture on the peritectoid reactions. That is what is it, therefore the whole thing will take about me about 10 to 12 or 30 lectures altogether for solid state reactions, and I will also talk about some variations of this reaction. So therefore about 14 lectures I will spend on solid state reactions altogether. So now let me just go back to the phase diagrams where this reactions happens, go back to the phase diagrams and where the reactions actually takes place. So as you see this is a classical example of the copper aluminum phase diagram which I have shown you here. Okay. So let me just tell you first the peritectoid reactions. What is the peritectoid reaction I told you? Peritectoid reaction is nothing but alpha, or rather beta I can write down, going to alpha plus gamma. This is the peritectoid reaction. Here you see this beta phase is transforming at 567 degree Celsius temperature, this is 567 degree Celsius temperature to alpha plus gamma, and this happens sorry, this is not a peritectoid reaction, this is a eutectoid reactions. Okay, I am just making a mistakes. Eutectoid reactions, you can see here the one phase beta eutectoid, one phase beta is transforming into two solid phases alpha plus gamma at 567 degree Celsius temperature, and this happens at about 75% of copper in aluminum copper alloy. I told you, aluminum copper alloy is very important for the aluminum rich end. Why? Because there is a eutectic reaction here. You can clearly see this eutectic reaction is what? Liquid going to alpha aluminum plus theta, and theta is Ul2. This is very important alloy system for aerospace industry. It is about aluminum 4 or 5 weight percent atom percent of copper is duralumin, and which is the bulk material for any airplane. So and that comes something around here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something around there here. Okay, correct. So therefore this in comparison to aluminum rich end, copper rich end has solid state reactions. The one is this. Second reaction is I am going to talk about is peritectoid reaction, which is present here also, peritectoid reactions which is present here also. And in this reaction what do we see? We see alpha plus gamma transforming into alpha 2, you can clearly see here, and it happens about 350 degree Celsius temperature. So, this is the peritectoid reactions which is present. Now, let me go to the next phase diagram, which is the this is silver aluminum, and you can see here that this one, this is a peritectoid reactions. Okay, here in fact these two phases FCC phase and ACV phase, they react and form a cubic phase A13. So, that means A1 plus A3 giving rise to A13. Okay, that is how it happens. A1 is always cubic FCC type, that is why it is called A1, and A3 is ACP type, that is why it is called. These are all type of structures, and cubic is your A13 structure. So, therefore, this is another example of peritectoid reaction. Okay. Well, let me just now give you monotectoid reactions, which is seen in aluminum zinc system. You can clearly see here, this is FCC, suppose this is gamma, and this transform to these two solid phases. Okay. Basically, this not transform, this is the dome, similar to like monotectic reactions. This is like a dome like structure, similar to monotectic reactions, and with it that dome there is a phase separation happen between gamma and there is another phase called alpha, let us suppose, and this is the monotectic reaction, monotectoid reaction, sorry, monotectoid reaction where gamma transform to or gamma 1 transform to gamma 2 plus alpha. So, these two are actually same crystal structure, compositions are different. So, that is how actually the monotectoid reactions to be can be detected. The reason I am showing you this phase diagram is that you must be able to detect the particular reaction which is present in a diagram, otherwise what is the use of discussing these kind of reactions. Another type of phase diagram which is very interesting and where I want to show you is the iron nickel phase diagram. Iron nickel phase diagram is in solid state, shows compounds like FeNi, FeNi3, Fe3Ni. Okay. But most importantly, you can see here there is a monotectoid reaction here at about 52% of this thing. So, here gamma is transformed to gamma 1 that transformed to gamma 2 plus FeNi. Okay, that is possible. So, similarly there is a phase separation here, but that is not the way monotectoid reaction happens. That is a different type of phase separations, which if I get time we will discuss later. Okay, so now I just want to go to the iron carbon phase diagrams, which what we will discuss in the next class in detail. Just to tell you that in iron carbon phase diagram there is an eutectoid reactions here, which most of you have studied or most of you have learned, and this eutectoid reaction is what in iron carbon phase diagram. Eutectoid reaction is very classic, is known as gamma going to alpha plus Fe3C. And this happens at about 727 degree Celsius temperature, and this is this mixture alpha plus Fe3C is known as perlite in the literature. So, therefore, it is very clear that gamma transformed to alpha plus Fe3C in the for the steels or compositions of the iron carbon alloys which correspond to steels, and this reaction happens. So, for the next lecture, our most important aspect of understanding will be understanding this reaction and the phase formations. So, which we will do in the next lecture.